What if you could know just 4 simple things that would radically transform your scoring in your next pageant interview? Today we're going to be talking exactly about that. Now, this episode is brought to you by our free pageant course, so make sure that you go to www.powerhousepageantry.com/free course to get about 12 hours of free coaching from me of how to win your next pageant. I'm Coach Megan, and welcome to the Powerhouse Podcast, the #1 pageant podcast in the world. And today we're going to be going over the 4 things, like I said, that will dramatically change your interview score. Now, as always, we have to talk about the real stuff. I'm not just here to give you tactics. I'm here to give you transformation. So let's talk about that first. The #1 thing that causes judges to know and trust you is actually not the tactics of your communication. It actually is the projected image of how you think and feel about yourself. Your self-image is the #1 thing that you could work on when it comes to winning a pageant, whether it is on stage or in your interview or in on-stage question. Even in choosing your headshot, your wardrobe, things of that nature. If I don't like my body and I have a self-image that my body is not correct for the job of Miss whatever, I'm subconsciously going to sabotage by choosing clothing that more than likely covers me up rather than allows me to shine. And you can imagine how that would directly negatively affect how the judges perceive you, because they are picking up on, whether you want to call it the vibrational frequency or energy field or the discernment that you do not even like yourself. And so it's cognitive dissonance to ask someone to take a flyer on you when you clearly don't even like yourself. On top of that, only 7% of communication is actually verbal. So if up to 93% of your communication is actually signaling, again, from your subconscious mind that you don't like yourself, you don't trust yourself, we're putting on this image of what I think that I'm supposed to do, rather than just being able to authentically glide into that interview, glide into that pageant with who you actually believe that you are, and who you believe that you are is who you are. That congruency is what sparkles and shines in every single phase of competition. And that's why in literally every episode that you'll hear from me, we talk about identity transformation. In fact, it was really cool. I actually got a DM in our Powerhouse Pageantry Instagram inbox earlier today of somebody that just found us and was like, "Hey, I love your guys' approach to pageantry. This is different than anything I've ever heard before." And I was like, wow, that's the biggest compliment in the world that you could ever give me, because at the end of the day, I care about pageant stuff, that's fine, but I care about you so much more. And I care about helping you to build yourself into the person that when the dresses and the glimmer and the lights and the trophies are gone and you no longer have the crown on your head, it's put away nicely, just like mine behind me, you have still built an identity that can perform for your next goal, your next achievement, whether that's climbing the ladder in the workforce or whether that's becoming a wife and mother or all those wonderful things. So let's get into these 4 things. In addition to what I've already spoken about, I guess that could be point #1. So maybe there's 5 total. Let's make that #1. So #2, the second thing that you can do to directly position yourself higher with the judges and win in your interview is you have to have a great headshot. The aesthetic judgment of you, the picture of you that the judges see both on the paperwork and when you walk into the room. First and foremost, these things need to match. If you have a headshot that is styling completely differently than how you're going to be wearing your hair and makeup in your interview, if it's not the right color palette for you, like for example, if I just went blonde and took all of my hair away, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, like I am a winter, so I need high contrast around my hair. I was telling the Bible study group yesterday that I dye my hair, and I have since I was like 15. My hair is actually like a very ashy, like light brown, dirty blonde. Shocker, I know. But this looks good on me as opposed to the rest of my family. I'm motioning to pictures of my entire blonde family. Everybody else that's blonde, because they have completely different color palettes than I do. So they don't need as much contrast around their face and all of that. So your picture really matters. Do you look energetic? Do you look proud of yourself? Do you look genuinely happy? Do you look genuine? Or do you look tired? Do you look angry? Do you look like you're going through something? Do you look crazy? Do you look like you're always having 15 tabs open in your head and you're just not thoughtful but pensive? You're way too pensive where you can't actually be open because you're so incredibly in your head. So it's been proven that people make a judgment call about you within 2 to 6 seconds of meeting you. And they did a Harvard study, actually, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, and we'll talk about this with my second point, well, really number 3, my third point, that they watched people's hand gestures on mute. And they had 2 people that were both equally qualified that were talking about the same topic. And then they told these students to say which teacher did you like more? And they really didn't have any audio on. So they were like, which one did you learn more from? And it's how could I learn from them when I can't even hear their audio? It might have been, who did you connect more with? And the person that had used like 200 more hand gestures than the other teacher, unanimously, the students felt more connected to. And so this is proof that we need to be expressive. We need to understand that our body language is telegraphing so much of our communication. And that is the next point, that if I were to record you with no sound and just look at you for 30 seconds, for a minute, what story would that be telling? Would that story be telling someone that is confident, that has their shoulders back, that, again, how are they dressed? How do they do their hair and makeup? Does it look like they actually know the rules to this game? Does it look like they know what they're doing? Does it look like they put in a solid effort, or does everything look DIY and hand-me-down from head to toe? Now, I'm not saying that you need to spend the most money on a dress, but it needs to look on par with everything. And in terms of your speaking, do you look like a brat? Do you look dumb? Do you look like you need to be shaken, where you haven't laughed in 7 years? How do you appear to other people? Do you appear genuine? Do you appear outgoing, introverted, annoying, funny, kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs? Do you look like you really need to be heard? This is your last breath of what's going to validate you. Do you look needy? Do you look like an imposter? So it might sound crazy, but these things we can tell. Or here's the thing, even if those things are not true about you, if that is still the perception of you, then suddenly that has become what is now true, because it is very hard to explant a first impression. Whatever the first impression is, whatever the first impression is. And if somebody has a negative first impression of you because of something that you're doing, now we need to analyze, and this is where coaching can come through, of whether that's bias or whether you should genuinely change that. But if it's regularly coming up that you are being perceived in a different way than is true to you, then you need to fix it, because it is not other people that are the problem. It is actually you that is the problem at that point. Okay. So then we go to the other side of things. I tell my clients this all the time. So that last one was mirror work. And now the final one that I'll mention today, or actually 2 more. So this next one, number 4, is audio only. So the reverse of that. So one of my exercises in Pageant Academy is we work on super stories. Super stories, the main themes, the main outcomes that you want to talk about when it comes to your pageant interview. And I tell my clients, this is where video I think is so helpful, because you can do both, of course. But if you were just to hold that video up to your ear and just analyze the sound of your voice. Again, do you sound intelligent? Do you not sound intelligent? Do you sound bratty? Do you sound like a know-it-all? Do you sound like you're trying to be above people? Do you sound like you don't believe in yourself? Do you sound super shy and introverted? Do you sound like you're second guessing yourself? It is so incredibly important to be aware of every part of you: head, shoulders, knees, and toes, tone, body language, outfit. And what I found is that the more insecurity that someone carries, typically the scarier it is for them to quote unquote look in the mirror, or of course the auditory version of this as well. And leaders, I've talked with many pastors in my life, and the best orators, the best pastors, the best public speakers, these different people, YouTubers, they are constantly going back. And it's not fun to look at the past, but they need proper data to know which data points they should continue to correct to get better. And what an insecure mind, what an undeveloped mind does, and an undisciplined mind does, is they allow fear to not let them want to look at the past, because they have room for improvement, and because they have not separated who they are and who they believe that they are, again, self-image, from their ability to fail and their failures. It literally destroys them looking at anything less than perfect. Congratulations. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. So if you are afraid to go back and look at the data of something, then somebody else is going to outgrow you, because the person who consistently makes 1,000 of these little adjustments is eventually going to be so acute in their awareness, and therefore, because of awareness, their ability to make subtle manipulations that actually turn into massive results when it comes to their communication. So this is absolutely huge. Okay. And then the last part of this is just your overall presence. And I really shouldn't use the word just because it's like everything. Are you aware of when you are in rapport with other people? Do you know when you've lost people when you're speaking? Are you an active listener to other people? Are you constantly taking mental notes of where you are in status with other people? When you walk into a conversation at church, at a networking event, backstage, like wherever, or let's say you're at a bar or in school, do people scurry away? There's a reason for that. And the problem is you, okay? Now, unless there's some like grand bullying scheme or something, but chances are you are not reading social cues well at all, okay? Can you sit in silence? Do you have to fill every room with noise in speaking? Oh, that annoys the crap out of me. If you've ever been with your best friend or your boyfriend or your husband or whatever it is, right? You can sit in silence and it's not awkward, okay? So you have to learn. Chances are if you're somebody that has to fill space all the time, you're also doing that with yourself, which means you're probably living a very self-medicated, distracted life. And then you're bringing that energy into your pageant interview and you're wondering why people don't want to be led by you and why they don't see you in a leadership position. So we literally have to practice these things, okay? So ask yourself, and honestly, ask your friends, how would you describe me when I walk into a room? Be brutally honest. And if they don't say things like, you light up every room that you walk in, you're positive, you're a great leader, you are a planner, we always look up to you for the right thing to do, then it's not like a negative thing about you. It's just data. It's just neutral. But we do need to be able to say, hey, I've got some work to do in this area. So if you're coming across as overwhelming or negative or annoying, or you're just like, again, you just have to speak all the time, but you're not really saying anything, okay? There is a pathway to becoming captivating, but there is a cost to becoming captivating because you actually have to do the inner self work. So those are my big 4+1 biggest interview tips. Watch this again if you guys need to watch it, because let me tell you, this will make the biggest difference when it comes to actually building rapport and a connection with the judges, which is ultimately what makes them know and trust you and select you as the next winner. Thanks so much for listening, you guys, and we'll see you next week.